Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. What's good, Percy? Yo, I was just talking about you the other day because we were putting together the we were talking about the class reunion, and I was like, we were just talking about like what you were going through last year, and how it like affected us as well. But what's good, homie? How you been? Can you hear me? Also, I'm about to do this thing, but I hopped on early to see make sure everything was working. Did he leave? Potentially. Hey! Hey, Seuss, long time. What has it been? 2 years or a year? Hi, can you hear me? I'm like, do I need these headphones, or can I do it this way? Also, maybe not. Maybe the folks can't hear me. Can the folks hear me or not? What's this do? Invite people. We're gonna invite Glynn in a second. Let me turn this music down. Close the window. Let's see. Commenting can stay. Turn off recording. That can stay. We can share. We don't need to do that. I just want to put like a caption on the joint. Hello. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm trying to decide if I can like not use a headset or if I need a headset. So if you can hear me, cool. If not, I can throw a headset, these headphones in. But let me know. Hey, Jess. Hey, Picasso. Picasso, tell me if you can hear me or not. Because everybody else is trying, like, they don't want to tell me if they can hear me or not. We can hear you? Okay, bet. Because I got this headset, but I'm like, maybe I don't need it. But cool. Thank you. Hey, boo. Thanks for hopping in. So we're waiting on Glynn. I hopped on early just to make sure that we wasn't going to deal with no technical difficulties. I'm texting Glynn now. She's going to hop in a second. Hey, Kayla. Good to see you. Right. I was actually talking about you the other day because me and my friend were talking about just being in the living room and you being like, Hamilton is the best thing ever. And he also did say he watched it and he was like, nah, but it wasn't though. But hey, girl, I miss our roommate days. Okay. We're waiting on Glynn, so she'll be here in a sec. We're gonna have right, no, it was a whole moment. Oh, here's Glynn now. Hey, Tori. So I'm just gonna host it here. instead of on the T&W page. I know that's confusing. Access issues is gonna make us just have to. We'll have the hey
Hi.
girl.
I feel like I look very foggy. Hold on.
You know, wipe the
Let me
give
wipe
us a
that
clear.
lens. I did put on a little contour to be on Instagram Live.
Right. So let us see my brightness up.
I'm still foggy.
How are you? Right, let it
I'm
out.
well.
Let's woosah really quick. So I was saying that I'm just hosting it here because of access issues. You know, when you're trying to use somebody else's page, just it can be like that. So we're gonna have the T&W chat space conversation here, and then I'll post it later to our other page. And then I don't know if I told you, but we're also gonna um, make it a part of our magazine as well. So it'll be in a few different places. All right, Kayla,
Cool.
we'll see you in a sec. Um, so yeah, let's woosah, settle in. I want to give people a few more minutes to just figure out that it's going to happen here instead of over there.
Right, exactly.
And so,
Are you playing music?
yeah, so I didn't find him. Well, I mean, I found him as far as my life.
Oh, you posted something about this artist.
Yes, so this pianist, oh, now they're hitting me like, here's the code.
Should we
Yeah,
see?
we just gonna have to do that on the next go around, baby girl. But yes, Julius Eastman is a pianist he passed like maybe 30 or something years ago, but Dev Hynes has I don't know if it's still called a cover when they do when pianists play each other's songs.
Maybe.
Well, Dev Hynes does a version of it.
Okay.
Of one of his song "Evil Nigger," and so I was like listening to that, and I was like, okay, but who made? Then you just are like,
let's start digging,
deep dive, So I did that, and I was like, oh, well, who's this guy? And he has a whole. I'll send you links on him later. I stayed up till like 4 a.m, like obsessed with this man. So.
Oh, I love it. Say the name again. This is a artist for people.
Julius Eastman. So this piece is called Feminine. And we'll hop into Glynn into your bag in a second, but I do think this will be a good
I'd like to set a little vibe. Hi,
transition.
Sophia. Hi, Curtis.
Hey, Curtis. Thanks for joining us. We're just listening to the piano real quick, letting everybody hop in, settle down, decide if they want to stay or not, and then we'll get into Glynn's writing life, her teaching life, her podcasting. Because they have Black Girls Texting has a lot going on over there. Glynn, can you hear me fine without headphones?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Because I was like asking. Picasso said it was cool, so I was trusting. I trust Picasso's judgment for real. All right, we're at 6:04. So
let's do it.
Actually, let's turn it off because the mics can pick up a lot of noise. All right, I don't need my laptop. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So me and Glynn are friends. So I'm just saying that just in case you're like, this is mad regular. It's like, yeah, we kick it for real. But I'm like always obsessed with Glynn with what Glynn has going on professionally. So I wanted to bring her on. Welcome to T&W Chat Space. This is a digital conversation space that I'm going to be hosting with Teachers and Writers Magazine. Glynn graced us as being our first guest. We're going to do it bi-weekly, so we'll have 2 conversations a month with different teachers who also have a substantial writing practice. Substantial in the sense that it is a consistent writing practice. Not like, Glynn's mad poppin' and has written for Guernica, Vogue, has been on Brooklyn 30 for 30, has written for National Geographic Traveler, and just is mad dynamic and prolific in how she shared her work. But also like writers who have a very personal writing practice are also invited into this. Because as a teacher, and we'll get into this as we continue the conversation, but as a teacher who also is writing, it also can be hard to find time to actually write.
100.
So I'm always amazed at Glynn's capacity to juggle both and to also find time to share it. Because I be writing, but I don't always be sharing because it's like I got to teach in the morning, so I'm gonna go to bed. But Glynn, just to start, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. You know, I have to say, as you were talking, and I was thinking about the fact that I've been invited here, I was struck by like how good it feels to call myself a teacher. And I talk a lot about like the moment when I realized that I was a writer and could call myself that, and like how powerful that was for me. And I start to get existential about like how these words like help define me and like they're a part of my identity, you know.
Yeah.
But something like teaching and writing are these like very like spiritual practices, I think, that are a lot deeper than something that you just do. Like they're of you, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm a third. I guess I've been teaching for a while, to be honest, like 7 years. But this year is the first year that I've been like in charge of a classroom, and I've been like, yo, I'm really a teacher. Like this is a part of me. So it feels really good, and I'm happy to be here. I do have a cocktail. Because I've been with these kids all day.
No, for real. I was like, should I pour some red? And then I was like, well, maybe I should talk to Asari. Asari's our editor-in-chief over at Team W. I was like, maybe I should talk to Asari about that. But I also feel like teachers need that space to unwind, have a drink, and just like chat about. I mean, it's also what we do. So I also want T&W ChatSpace to be that space of like, teacher, you know, it's like that moment where you see your teacher in the grocery store and you're like, oh my God, you buy groceries? Like, yeah. And I'd be like sipping my cocktails too in the evening after I'm done with, you know, pouring into your young lives.
Right.
So I don't have mine, but just know there's a red waiting for me downstairs. I want to start with so you say you've been teaching, and you were a little hesitant, 3 years, 7 years. When were you first in the classroom, or like even setting up workshop spaces to execute lesson plans?
Yeah, so I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and I love that we have this like connection that you were in AmeriCorps. When I was in Peace Corps, I was an English teacher, and I can't front, I was kind of the worst.
In what way?
So, and it's actually like kind of like sad to think about, but like just the education. I was serving in Cambodia. The system there was just like very convoluted. The kids would show up and then there would suddenly just be like no school. And I didn't really know the language in the beginning, so I didn't know why there was no school, but there just was like no school. So I'd be like, all right, I guess I'm gonna go back home and like chill. Like and again, so I'm in this country, I don't really speak the language. I'm teaching English to this like I'm like 40 kids who are at totally different levels of English speaking, and it also depended upon like the access they had to like outside tutoring and all this type of stuff. So I mean, you know, I started to get introduced to this idea of teaching across levels and being able to do like breakout groups, and like if I do one main lesson, that I'm assigning like smaller activities for different groups of kids that are more suited to where they are. But I think at the time I just was like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. I did not know it was going to entail all of this. Yeah. So it was, and I had done this like really intensive, like 4 months on pedagogy. And then I was just like thrown into a classroom. So I was definitely like fish out of the water. There's a lot of bureaucracy, and I was just like, what I found, but I was in the classroom. I was standing in front of a group of 30 kids, and I was like, oh, this is a performance.
Like 4 months after training.
4 months.
That is the one thing about like so I did AmeriCorps City Year, and we don't lead the class, but we're intervention specialists for just to get, because they call us core members, but if you do the job that we did anywhere else, you're gonna probably be hired as an intervention specialist or some type of para in the classroom.
Right.
And so we went through training, probably not even 4 months, girl. We got like 2 weeks of training. They put us in the classroom, And two things happened. One, I felt so ill prepared, but also really thankful that I didn't do Teach for America, because that's what I was at first going to do. And then I was at Harvard for a conference, and this, what is his name? He was president of Black Student Union at University of Michigan. And he was like, do City Year, TFA is, he had his thoughts about TFA. And I was like, well, I don't want to be ill prepared standing in front of students, being the person that's responsible for like them knowing how to read or not. And so I was like, City Year felt like a good medium. But so there was this shock of just like being in the classroom and realizing like, oh, I don't want to be in the classroom in this capacity, like the all day, the all day thing.
Interesting.
Which is another thing I tip my hat to you for, because I mostly work as a as a teaching artist. I teach creative writing. So I'll hop in, we do an hour or two, I hop out, I have another class, we boom, 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 and I hop out. So I had that revelation, and also just like the stakes of the classroom.
Yeah.
Really like seeing what it took to be in the classroom all day, what it took to provide students with that kind of counsel. At 23 years old, I was like, oh, I need to figure out a different way to engage my desire for teaching. So it's cool to hear about.
I think I was having all of those same feelings when I first stepped into that classroom. I had one class that got me. They were 7th graders, and I ended up teaching them again the next year. And like, those were my kids. Like, that was like, you have these classes, and I guess it is a little different because I start with these kids at the beginning of the year, and we go a whole year together, and then we like leave, and then we like never see each other again, really, in the same way. And that was the first experience that I had where I was like, oh my God, I feel so connected to these students. Like, every time my kids leave for the summer, I'm weeping and have to like go in a corner. And
I love when they give us like, when they write little notes and they're just like, I'm gonna miss you, Mr. Matt. And I'm just like,
oh my God, it's really powerful.
Because it is, and I think and I want to hear about to transition to when you started writing. Like, for me, teaching opened me up in a way it opened me up emotionally in a way that was important to me writing. And so around the time that I was like, yeah, I want to teach in whatever way that I end up teaching, I want to teach, I also committed to being a writer. So after doing City Year, that's where we ended up meeting at the new school.
Yeah.
But I like committed to being a writer I was in the classroom, and one of my students was like, yeah, like I want to be a rapper. And I had a lot of students that wanted to be rappers or basketball players. And so I would challenge them like, yo, drop like freestyle right now. And they would be hesitant, and I would be coaching them. And I'm like, oh, I need this same support and coaching. And like, I just want to like lean in and really write. And so for you, you started teaching in a more formal capacity about 7 years ago when you were entering the Peace Corps. Were you writing at that time, or were you already writing?
Yo, it's literally the same type of journey. Like, so I was in undergrad, I studied PR, journalism, not really creative writing, but in my senior year, I started like flirting with some creative writing. I was just talking about this. And I've always been writing, but not like taking myself super seriously with it in a creative way. But I had just gotten out of a really like tragic breakup, and all this crazy stuff was happening. So I just started writing a bunch.
It will do it. A breakup will do it.
It'll do it.
They say this poet out in Milwaukee is like, never break a poet's heart, because you will show up.
I was writing about this person so much. It was ridiculous. But our mutual friends, Zoe and Taylor, who's out in the Bay, we started doing these like writing salons in our living room. And that like kind of planted the seed for me. And then when I was in Cambodia teaching, same kind of thing. I was like, yo, this is happening. I can't stop writing. And I got my MFA as soon, like I left Cambodia and I was in an MFA program. So I actually really went from teaching hardcore, because I was like, what am I doing, for 2 years. And then I was in the classroom. I was now a student and I was writing. And in that MFA program was when I was like, oh, I'm a writer. Like that was the experience for me that allowed me to like own that. Yeah.
Well, 2 questions. One, Do you have a favorite age group to work with in the classroom in a teaching space? And also, have you taught writing at all? Have you
Yeah,
taught creative writing or even just like phonics,
yeah.
literacy in any type of capacity?
So right now I'm a pre-K teacher and I'm obsessed and I realize like this is my space. These are
A
the kids
little.
I love. I
Mhm.
love them so much. And I think, like I said, I've been able to call myself a teacher this year. I like found my groove. I found my age group. But I have worked with like first grade, and that's when the writing and the reading has to blossom.
Yeah.
And I was a crazy person with them with these like little essays that they write. They're right.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, let's add another page. We're revising. This was a draft. You need to go
Yeah.
back. I was putting edits on their stuff. They're in the first grade. I was tearing their whole thing up. They were so over me. But then they're at the end of the year have like a 10-page essay. Like,
Yeah.
and then
Which is
that
fun.
was kind of giving me this insight that I could do it. And people ask me all the time, will I teach a workshop? Like they would
Hmm.
love for me to teach something. I tip my hat to you because I don't even really know how to teach this thing that I do.
That's so.
Really.
I see. I think though, you can't overthink it because even when I'm thinking about working with the young children, like for example, my brother, the cat is playing with its toy with the bell on it. If you hear that, but my brother is homeschooling my two nephews right now, and like they're at home. And one of them, he's like learning how to read. He's learning how to write. And I'm there and I'm just I'm like, oh, I'm overthinking how to teach him how to read and write, you
Yeah.
know? And like that gets me in my way and then can like project onto the young person. But I think in those writing workshops, because I also do prefer an older age group. I prefer between 8th grade and 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not overthinking it because a lot of it for me as far as the creative writing workshop is just introducing people to my writing practice
Okay.
so that they can get an intimate look and then start to develop a writing practice for themselves. And that's also the kind of tactic I use with my nephew, for example, and other young people that are learning phonics, are learning how to sound things out and whatnot, like just modeling a tactic for them to then adopt into their own life. And honestly, I'm the kind of teacher that's like, I'm going to present you with information and then you have to figure out how it applies or not. Because, you know, students always will hit you with the, well, why does this matter? Why do we even have to learn this?
Right.
And I can't really answer that question for you. I don't know what your career path is going to look like, but I do think it's important for you to have a toolkit that opens up the world to you in a way that you at your young age doesn't even know is possible.
Totally.
You know?
Now, I feel you. I mean, I find myself even with my young age group trying to read these very robust, like read alouds and trying to pry all this information out of them. Like, why do you think they wrote that? What does that mean? Why did they say that? And I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm ready. I might be ready. I mean, this could be the year that I mess around and teach a workshop.
I think you would be really dynamic in the workshop space because you are so good at those discussions. And like when I'm working with even my seniors right now, like for me, writing, my interest in writing was even sparked by my brother, you know, listening to Blueprint, the first Blueprint album, and then us like deconstructing what does Jay-Z mean when he does this? Like, what's a double entendre? And me Googling like triple entendre, you know what I mean? Like he was using so many literary devices in such a short space of a 16 bar verse that it was so robust and so much to unpack and discuss, and that sparked my interest and then gave me, I was like, oh, I can do that, and this is how I can do that. I think that you would offer in a workshop space that type of lively discussion where people would have some revelations about what they're engaging with literary wise or in music that they
totally
have,
I mean, I think that's the cool thing about the workshop space too, is that you can curate like what you're going to read, consume, all of that. And I could see myself like geeking out on that totally. Like this is how it's gonna flow. I love the curation, you know.
The mentor text, I love, that's one of my favorite parts of putting together a lesson plan. It's like, well, what are we gonna discuss today? like what they might be, what are the kids into these days? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
That's the thing. I feel like I have to be hip. So I'm curious. You were telling me offline that you taught to. Oh no, you weren't telling me offline. You were on your stories that you taught two
oh,
workshops this
screaming.
morning. I know. I feel so. Your stories are very intimate, Matthew. I'm like, because we definitely talked about how you taught this morning.
Oh, I love that you feel like you're here with me, because I
I
also
do.
was just like,
I was
yeah,
like,
I
yeah, we
love
were
you.
FaceTiming or something, right? So, what did you teach this morning, or like, what are y'all up to?
So I'm working with a school in Brooklyn actually on the cat is going ham.
It
You gotta
truly is.
stop.
It's now knocked something over.
Yeah, no, like literally, we're gonna stay here. We're working on different poetry forms with actually 11th grade now. I just wrapped up with 12th. So today we were looking at a sento. Do you know what a sento is?
No, what is a sento?
So a sento, I love teaching people poetry because everyone's like, what is it? I don't get the point, but you do because everyone loves hip hop. It's the foundation of hip hop. But the sento is a poetry form that is a poem, a singular poem, comprised of found language from other poems. Is really like how you really, really do it. But, poets are very like, we make our own rules. So if you say something that's really compelling, I could put that in a poem. Uh, if I'm reading a script and I see a line that I enjoy, I can pull that into a poem. So a cento is a poem comprised of found language from other pieces of writing, music, movies, etc.
How
Even
does that work
conversation.
with crediting? Do you have to credit? Are there
Oh,
footnotes?
I think it's so. Also love this conversation. Actually, we've talked about this. Shameless plug on Teachers and Writers Magazine before. So this conversation about like actually you would really be into this. Okay, I'm gonna get to the part you'll really be into. So like plagiarism versus intertextuality.
Right.
So like plagiarism is like me taking literally a first line off of your like the essay that you wrote for Vogue about Cardi B's child. Like if I just stole something from that and put it in my thing, that could be considered plagiarism. In the tradition of poetry though, we think about it, and it also is up for discussion as like an intertextual move. So taking someone's text and weaving it into your own. To me, that is still, we see that in hip hop where keeping Jay-Z in the forefront of here, like he has a lot of Biggie lines in a bunch of his songs,
It's true.
and it's very regular. Lil Wayne has on Mr. Carter. First of all, Jay-Z wrote that whole final verse, but not even like particularly for that song. It's on another song that's on, I think, Blueprint Volume 2. So that borrowing is a part of the tradition. This is the part I think you would really love. So there's this guy in Canada who now is like, he kind of went back into obscurity just because you know how press works. But he was like digging through like US and Canadian poems and like calling people out on like plagiarizing. And there was a guy, oh hey you Don, I just have to just because my heart. There's a guy who had wrote this book of poems, had gotten a bunch of awards from it, but the book was totally like he just was like stealing a bunch of Tupac stuff, using it somewhere in Canada where no one is like, I guess, listening to Tupac.
Oh, man.
Yo, it's a whole thing. I'm gonna send you links, bro. It's just one of those things where it's like, one, why do you have the time? But also like somebody, I don't know, somebody should be, there has to be, I'm not into police, but some type of literary policing just to hold us all accountable to not even originality, but adding to the culture, adding to the art form.
Right, because in the examples you gave in music, it's like those people are in conversation with each other, or like when you hear the reference, you know the reference. They're like, yeah, I don't know. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think I'll send you links. He's like, I don't know. I think he's pretty cool just because he is digging through all this literature and just putting together things that seem very disparate but are connected by plagiarism and like this conversation. Is this plagiarism or is this intertextual?
Right.
And how are we dealing with crediting or not? I do want to see also though, So you have your podcast, Black Girls Texting.
Mm-hmm.
How are you balancing? Because I also do want to talk a lot about balance. A lot of teachers, just like work-life teaching balance can get blurry, and we're up doing lesson plans at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
It's 12. I have to be in the school at 6, you know, so
Yeah.
there's that. So you're dealing with that, but at the same time, you have a podcast that's picking up a lot of steam, that has had some recent developments that I want you to announce a little bit, get the girls hip, because we need to know and celebrate you in that capacity. How are you balancing all of these things?
Yeah, oh my God, barely. Yes, so to your last point, my podcast, Black Girls Texting, doing really well. We just got acquired by Podcast One under the Lady Gang Network. And with all of that has come like a lot of steam. Thank you. I was actually on a call with them right before this, and one of our most recent episodes got 10,000 downloads, and it was like the biggest we've ever had. We were looking at all our numbers, and they've just been increasingly growing over the past like 2 months. But it's required a lot of work. It's required a lot of recording dates. Like my Wednesday, Thursdays, I pretty much already know those are Black Girls Texting days. And to be fully honest, I think in the beginning, at least, I used the podcast in some ways as like a way to like work through some things I was thinking about for a story. Because a lot of my work is personal essay, but also like cultural criticism. And that's a lot of what our podcast does. Like we have this one episode called Caucasian Vacations. And it was the story that I was thinking about, that I'm still thinking about like just being the Black house guest with like white friends when they to the Hamptons, or to Maine or to their summer homes. And it was just in my mind so much, and I wasn't really ready to write about it yet. And I was like, let me bring this to the podcast and let's talk through it. And like through that then helped inform what I will write. Still haven't written it yet because balance and time. I'm realizing I'm not the best at as good at time management as I think that I am. It's kind of chaos.
Wait, but you are, so you're utilizing a calendar to balance the chaos.
Yes,
does
calendar.
Anything out of your multiple buckets, what takes precedent or priority? Like for me, my writing takes like comes before like my email will be packed with just like, hey, we need this lesson plan from you, or like the volunteers need you to like give them instruction on how they should be engaging with the students. And I'm like, honestly, I found a really good groove tonight, and I want to write and just be emo in my room.
Yes.
What do you prioritize in your day-to-day?
Yeah, I think currently it's been teaching, but I think it's because it's this place where I have to show up every day and these kids are there. And as I mentioned, like in the beginning of our conversation, this whole like existential thing that I have, where even when somebody asks me what I do, even though teaching is the thing that I'm prioritizing the most, I'm always leading with writing. I'm a writer. So I do want to like prioritize that a bit more. But I'm also like I don't want to give myself shame for showing up, being a teacher every day and loving it and being present there and like that being okay. Because it's fueling me in an amazing way that's like bringing me a lot of joy. And as of now, like I really want to get back to writing more for exploration. I think at a certain point, like when we were in our MFA together, I wasn't writing thinking about publishing like that. I would throw something out in a workshop.
But girl, you was publishing.
When I was publishing, yes.
You was out here. You was
I know, I was throwing
grinding
stuff out there and people were like, you should try to publish this. And I was like, oh, I should try to publish it.
Where's the book?
Girl, the book, Lord help me, the book. I actually have something interesting about that to mention. But yeah, like I was just writing just to write. I was publishing, but I wasn't thinking about where it was going. It wasn't really the goal. Now when I'm writing, it's usually like on assignment and it's the deadline that's like that's unavoidable. Yeah. And I'm trying to I was just working on, I just finished the story and the deadline was like in my brain. Like I was like, oh God, I don't even want to do this. I don't even want to sit down and do this right now. It's killing me. And I want to just get to the point where I just can pull up at my desk. But I think it should, I don't think it should feel like that. I want to get out of that. But even if I'm not on deadline, I do want to find myself in a way where in my practice where I'm like, okay, you got to go sit at your desk. As you always tell me, I have to get in the gym.
In the gym. We in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. But so what I am doing now though is rereading like my thesis from my MFA and my first manuscript that I sent out, my book proposal that was rejected from everywhere that it was sent to. And it's so funny because
that's the process.
I know.
Nobody
no.
wanted Reasonable Doubt, and now Rolling Stone's like, this is one of the 500 greatest albums ever. It's like Jay was like pushing that album for a good minute.
Listen, truly, I'm glad that it was, and I know why it was, because I'm reading back on this like, child, what are you talking about?
I was gonna ask you, what is that? Because I always love, you know, I'm an obsessive journaler, just to like get stuff off my chest, but also to track progress, also to revisit ideas and notes, and just, oh, someone said something interesting today. When you're looking back at your thesis, how do you feel about that writing? How do you feel about even where your headspace was in that moment? Are you looking back and feeling like, ooh, my concerns were so trivial?
Kind of.
Just looking back at you being like a young writer.
It feels
you know
young.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think like I'm still interested in some of the same topics, but the writing itself feels young. Like I'm like, oh, I'm a better writer now. I'm just a far better writer now. And I found myself like I was literally like hesitant and feeling like all this anxiety about actually reading it. I've been carrying around like a stack of papers like this for like a week and haven't been able to like come to it. And actually my kids were napping yesterday and I was like, all right, let me just start looking through these papers. And I found myself reading it with a level of like I was a bit removed from it. And I was just marking it up and editing it as if it wasn't even mine, but in a good way, kind of. I actually was thinking about it like I was editing somebody else or like editing a student, like giving.
You kind of need that distance though.
Yeah.
You know, something that I do when I first get any edits back is just like freak out and not look at it at all. I'm like,
oh, same.
Thank you for these notes, and I'm not gonna look at them for weeks. Like and then when I come to it, I'm always like, "Ooh, you were being so dramatic." But I know in that when I immediately receive the notes back, I'm too emotionally bound up in the work to actually even receive feedback.
Oh.
So I think that remove you're talking about becomes really integral to revising and self-editing, which is so important to the writing process.
Yeah, I'm actually I think it's going to be fun now. I feel like I've kind of like ripped off the Band-Aid and I'm like, okay, let's get into this. Like, what were you thinking about? What were you obsessed with? Like, what is all of this stuff?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. And I'm looking at it now and thinking like how it can inspire new things. And again, because I'm still interested in the same things, but like, how would I speak about them now? Having lived a lot more life.
Yeah. So as a writer, there is that experience that can make us better writers and better teachers. I'm interested to just stick with this craft moment. What has, other than experience, what has helped you sharpen your writing skills and just hone your craft as a writer?
Yeah,
You know I'm impressed.
I know.
Look, we got the chat.
I'm like, I wonder. One thing I'm actually that I've thought about though, and I don't know if maybe this has informed my writing in any way, but I even think about like how in some workshops when we were in the MFA and even coming up in school, I used to be very intimidated by academic spaces. I was very like quiet. My mom found all my old report cards recently because she's like that. And she was like, I want you to take a look at these and I want you to look at what they all say about you. And all of them were like, she clearly has so many thoughts and things to share. She just never speaks. She never raises her hand. She doesn't talk. She doesn't contribute. Yeah. Right. And even like I kind of felt that a little bit in the MFA, but I would still kind of talk kind of sort of. Yeah. Like, I mean, I definitely in workshop. But then sometimes I'd be like, do I even know what I'm talking about? What am I saying? I don't know.
I know that imposter syndrome.
The imposter syndrome was heavy. And it's the confidence thing. So I do think the ability to like be on this podcast every week and just talk and share my thoughts and voice them so much has helped me feel affirmed in my voice a lot more.
Yeah.
Like I also, like one thing as I was reading back my work, I'm like, yo, you're not like going deep enough. Like I feel like you're holding back. It feels a little restrained. And I feel like more comfortable going there, I think. Even though I do pride myself on being a writer that goes there, but I think I could go further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say go further, do you mean like bear the intimacies of your life and your soul, really, if we're really talking about writing?
Yeah.
You know, are we talking about that, or are we talking about just drawing your images more clearly so that as a reader I can receive what you're talking about?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Definitely, like, as I'm rereading my work, it feels, at least what I was just reading was like quite chatty. And I love being chatty. I think it's like, it's kind of cute, it's kind of pleasant. But it's like, okay, you're like chatting, but like, what does this like mean? So it's some of that is like bringing it all the things together. And I'm being like super vague. So maybe it'll help if I talk about the piece that I'm referring to. So I was in Jack and Jill, this like club for this like bougie social club for Black people. But the Brooklyn chapter. So it's always been something I was interested in, was like this duality of being in this like kind of upper crust society group, but also all of the people that were in it, myself included, we all lived in Brooklyn. A lot of us went to public school. Like we knew all different sorts of existences. So I'm kind of like, in this part that I was just rereading was kind of detailing that, but it's just, I'm just like writing it. Like I'm just explaining it. But I think like I could go deeper in some ways, but also I think literally it was just describing it. And I'm like, girl, you need some scenes. There needs to be scenes. Where are the scenes? Where's the language? Where's the dialogue? Who are the people that are here? And like they can help you go deeper in that way by like telling a fuller story, because you're just like explaining it on the page and being like chatty and fun. And one thing I've been thinking about though is like a lot of these like chatty pieces I want to turn into a like podcast of sorts, like an audio storytelling thing where I can just kind of talk and it's more conversational. It's conversational and I'm telling a story, and you'll still get these moments where, you know, the language is poetic and descriptive and stuff, but it hits a little different when you hear it than when you're reading it. Like I think I've grown and worked a lot harder on like imagery and painting those scenes and all of that. Like that's really important to me. So yeah.
And that's always like when we're working with the cat is like doing the most. And so we're just gonna roll with it. I'm holding her now. She just needs it. When we're working with young people, a lot of what I always have to do with my students is encourage them the whole show versus tell. Like I know that you saw whatever you saw, but like help me see what you saw.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you had this experience, but like give me the sensory experience of the moment instead of just saying, Jack was mad at me. What did that anger feel like? How was that anger received? You know, was it a quiet tension that just made the air mad tight? How was that? What did that scene feel like? And so usually with those moments, I'll direct students to like a sensory detail exercise where I'll literally bring them down. So using some type of visualization techniques, but bringing them down to like, one, let's name the senses. You know, touch, sight, smell, hearing, taste, and then write a sentence that is engaged with one of those sentences without saying I smelled or I tasted, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
like
good.
that.
See? Oh my God, I need you to help me.
Oh, I mean, you know.
Nah, but it's so true. Like, and I've even been like, and I mentioned earlier that I love the way you are on stories. I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to you. Can you hear me? Because my phone gave me a low battery thing, so I think I'm delayed.
Yeah, I got a low battery thing too, so mine was, but
Oh, that's what
we're
was
good.
happening to you. I was like, because you just did
Yeah.
something weird. Okay. Um,
We're back.
yeah. I find myself writing these like little small like vignettes or just like little descriptive moments of like, actually, when I was in the Peace Corps, I kept this blog, and Will's in here who was in Peace Corps with me. I had this blog, like this Tumblr called The Moments, and I was just writing these like super sensory packed little slices of a moment experience that I was having on my day-to-day living in this little village. And I find myself like still writing a lot like that. And I'm like, how do I need to merge those two. Like I need to give my readers some room, a break from my chit chat, and like let's see it. Like I'm in a writers group now, which is a nice thing that's helping me with my accountability and to like get back into that space. Yes, Campuchia. And I did this piece that I wrote about Alabama for National Geographic, but it was like a lot more reported.
I love that piece.
Thank you. And you know, the thing that's interesting is I sent it to them with all of these like, you know, precursors, like, so it's a little journalistic. It might be boring. I don't know. You might hate it. Just tell me what you think. I just want to put it in my own voice. I want it to be a personal essay. And like ran away. And they came back and were like, loved it. Like the voice was still like super. Thank you, Willa. The voice was super. Still really rich and all of that. But the one thing they were saying, they were like, yo, it's in Alabama. I need to feel Alabama. And I'm like, how did I not do that? How did I miss that? I'm like describing places like, oh, we walked into this church and it was like this, that, and the third. But like, what did the land feel like?
Yeah, because it's that shift that you're talking about, that sensory shift where like as a writer, often writers just want to tell you like, I saw this and I saw that. And then this happened and that was crazy. And then someone flashed us as we were driving by, you know, whatever it might be.
Right.
Where when you're reading, as a writer, that feels really good to do on a first draft.
Right.
But as a reader, I want to stand in your shoes and see the world from that perspective. I like a lot of readers don't necessarily, and I don't know, it's also up for debate. But a lot of readers, I don't think, want to just be told this is what happened or this is what you don't know about. It's like, put me in a situation where I'm walking into the room and I don't even know that there's something I don't know about on the other side of this door.
First things first is we're in the room.
Yeah. Something I wanted to come back to, and we're reaching about 45 minutes, so I just have a couple of more questions. You were talking about revisiting your writing and being like, this is so chatty, and you wanted to push back against that. In my experience right now in reading black essayists who are writing memoirs, it does, in my reading of them, I'm like, why does my question, and maybe you could answer this, maybe you're like, I don't really feel you. It feels to me like the black writer has, or is taking on a responsibility to like be an expert rather than being, and not even just an expert of our own experience, but be an expert of like what we're talking about. So for example, you're writing about Brooklyn. If I were to put you in my example, Glynn would then have to be an expert on Brooklyn rather than just doing like I'm in Brooklyn and this is what's going on, and still giving us those scenes so that we're having a full experience of as a reader. But do you feel that same, or do you feel that pressure? Is that something that's coming up in your writing, that idea that you need to be an expert to write anything? And I guess I'm interested in this because it also seems to be something that could be getting in the way of black writers just sharing work.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I was literally just thinking about this yesterday.
Well, go ahead, because
Sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, okay, last piece is, so right now, you know, I'm a Lena Dunham fan. I read her stuff. I watch her shows. And like, she could pay me or not, I will always promote her stuff because it just does something to me that I wasn't expecting. But like, I'm reading her memoir and she's not really, she's just being like, this is what was going on at 24, 25 years old, you know? And like reading another memoir for a writer I'm going to do a talk with next week, Hari Ziad, who's another person who ever got Give Me Nothing, I will promote
Yeah.
their work. Hari is still giving us scenes, doing a lot of the craft work that we're talking about, but is also explaining the Black political situation in the U.S. in a way that feels so astute. But at the same time, I'm like, it feels like a pressure. Like, it feels like they had to have this kind of articulation of what it means to be in the U.S. Or like the book would have just been like something that people would shrug at. Do you feel that pressure, though, to be an expert on your subject matter?
Yes. Oh my God, the way you that is insane. I was just listening to Hanif was on Fresh Air, and I was
come
like,
on, Ohio.
Yes, right? And I was like, how does he keep cranking out all of these damn books? What? I was like, maybe I should just become obsessed with a topic and just research it and become a damn expert. And then I would just have a wealth of things to say. So that was one. I was like, wow, like being an expert on something, it seems to like hit. But also it's kind of cool to be like obsessed with something as well. And that's a little bit different than what we're talking about, because another thing that I noticed as I was going back in my work is that I was finding myself trying to be an expert too. And those are kind of the parts that I wanted to cut. Like, I know I said I wanted to go deeper, but it's maybe like a bit more deeper personally, whereas I was explaining like the social implications of Jack Jill and when it was founded and all of these things. And it's like, that doesn't even need to be here. It kind of felt like a diversion, actually. It's like, whoa. I felt like that pressure so much. Oh my God, yes.
Same, girl. I like literally I've written 3 manuscripts, one of which I actually did shop a little bit, but then I just shelved because I was like, I had that feeling that you had. I'm like, this is too young, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know, I want to encourage more Black writers to not only write the shitty first draft, but also to like write I'm too young to write a memoir book. Like one of the memoirs I read that I enjoy by a Black writer, Casey Gerald, has a book, There Will Be No Miracles. And like, he also is an expert, but he sticks to he's an expert of his own experience in the same way that like, Lena Dunham is.
Yes.
It's not like, I mean, he's giving you class breakdowns, he's giving you sexuality breakdowns, and this exploration and a bit of theory, but he also just is like, this is who my mom was. You know what I'm saying? I think I want to just continue to encourage, and not to turn this into a coaching moment, but to encourage like Black writers to have that personal, that what you're talking about, like be an expert of the personal, because that is something that deserves to be honored in literature. You know, your personal life, your personal experiences in Brooklyn, and in the classroom.
Yeah.
Wow, let's just dive in then, Glynn.
Wow. That was like what I needed. What? Because Matthew is my teacher.
No, you know, I was reading, you know, I'm just a voracious reader.
Yes.
And I'm reading these Black memoirs, and I'm like, I'm enjoying them, but I'm also like, no, stick to the part that's just like about you being like at home watching too much TV, you know? It's like, why now do we have to get into this breakdown of like the television being a political tool to I think that's important. I think it's important, but like, that's honestly not why I came to your work. Not you, Glynn, but whichever writer I'm reading.
Completely. I literally was just thinking about this. And that's why I kind of was talking about the whole scene thing. And I think what I'm saying, the chatty thing, is what I'm saying is that I'm like giving a dissertation or something, but trying to put it in like a cute chatty voice. So it's like, no, we're still here. We're still like in this fun space. Like, I have this part where it starts with this amazing scene. I describe myself as like sitting in this. I'm calling it an amazing scene, whatever. It's an amazing scene. But
it's an amazing scene.
The way I described myself also was cringy as hell. I was like, I'm sitting in this like college classroom or something, because we were about to do some elections for Jack and Jill, and I have on gray contact lenses and a members only jacket, spray painted with my like tag name on it, and my hair is fried so hard that when I turn my head, the hair is lifting. It's like all of this stuff is happening, and then we like leave that suddenly, and it's like Jack and Jill is an age-old association. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, where are you going? What happened to the hair? contact. Somebody gonna say something about them? Like,
Right.
let's just like let's tell the story and like let's let the story do the work.
Or like, was your even like so that sensory moment? Like,
Yeah.
was your like were your palms sweaty? You
All
know,
of
like
that.
was there something? Were your armpits just like moist for no reason, and you couldn't figure out what was triggering your anxiety? You know, there's so much happening in the rooms, and it does feel like Black artists, Black writers are pulled to be like, yeah, but what was the race dynamic in the room?
Exactly.
And it's like, I mean, yeah, I noticed that, but like also like my nail polish was black and someone commented on that, and then later we went to the bar and like that is the story. I went to the bar.
Exactly.
You know, I think I think that that's really, as I'm working with my students, I'm always telling them like, honor your voice in the way that the way that you're gonna write your best pieces of writing is by writing exactly how you write, how you speak to your people. Like, honor that on the page. It deserves the page, and in that also like honor the like minute details. Like, it doesn't always have to be these broad stroke sweeping things where it's like, I have a dream. Like, we don't need you to inspire us. We just want to know your story.
That's it.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Because that is the source of the inspiration. Just seeing you like, hey Brookie, just seeing you Glynn, but also just the Black writer persevere through the circumstance of being a U.S. citizen. It's like all of that was happening, and at the same time, you were just like in the bar,
right,
like, taking shots with some other writer who comes to find out quit writing. You know, like that's the stuff. I think that's the juice.
Yeah, and
trying to teach that has been really tough for me though. Trying to teach my students that.
I mean, as soon as I stepped into the MFA, I felt like that was my responsibility somehow, and I don't really know whoever told me that, but I somehow it became this thing that I thought I had to do. But it makes me think about this thing the interview I was listening to with Hanif, and he was saying like the first book he set out to write, it's this new book about performance, was about like minstrelsy and performance. And then as he was doing all this research, he decided like, I don't even want to write about that. I want to write about like the joy of performance and like the performances throughout Black history and Black culture and music and film, theater, whatever, that have made us happy, that have been like these iconic moments, these artists, these musicians who have like made those performances that like when we're chilling and it's that hour of the night, we just go on YouTube and we're like, should we watch Whitney Houston sing the national anthem again for the
right.
time? And I loved hearing the way that like shifted for him, you know, like he might have set out, and it's still an informative piece. He is a piece of work, like he is an authority on something, but I'm realizing that I also don't want to have to like I could tell stories where like Black people are happy kicking it, like a crazy ass night that we had is still like a valid story. Right. If I didn't like give a dissertation, if I didn't talk about the race implications, if nobody got pulled over at the end of the night.
If nobody's called light skinned, dark skinned, brown skinned, chocolate skinned, however we were describing it the whole time, we just know there were people in a place and we had someone there to observe it. Like that deserves your page.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, Glynn, I don't want IG to cut us off and then we have to end awkwardly.
I know.
Is there any like last things you want to plug us about? Any Black girls texting things, or just anything happening in Glynn's world that you want us to know before we say toodles for now?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I'm definitely putting in some work on an audio-based storytelling project that I'm hoping to release in the summertime. So look out for that. Black Girls Texting comes out every Wednesday. You can follow us at Black Girls Texting. Yes, Rookie Girl. Doing some things. And yeah, I'm at Bed-Stuy Brat. Really, I'm just like, please let me get to June 8th when the children pack up those bags of all those art projects and things that we've been doing all year. I've already started taking things down. I'm not even going to lie.
Just pushing them out.
Here. We're just phasing it out. Love y'all. You're beautiful, Zoe.
Hey, Zoe. Hey, Brookie. Thank y'all for joining us. Thank you, Glynn, for giving us your time and your voice and your stories and your talent tonight. And also just like breaking in this little child I want to create with Teachers and Writers Chat Space. I think it's really important for us to talk about the craft of teaching, to talk about the craft of writing, and for us to have a low stakes space just to be like, hey, like I'm looking at my old thesis and like I was a chatty 24-year-old.
Exactly.
You know, I think that I don't know. I want to cultivate this space, and I thank you for breaking us in, because I see this being a really rich moment, and I think you coming in has really even made me more comfortable moving forward with. I'm like, yeah, I mean, Glynn co-signed it. So
yes, this is wonderful. I'm like, is it the kettle one? I'm like, oh my god, I just talked about all of my insecurities for an hour. This is so great. I'm so honored to be the first, and I can't wait to see, like, to tune in for all the others, because
yeah, we're gonna roll. I'm excited. Well, thank you, Glynn. You have a good night. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Those that hopped in, hopped out. Those that hopped in and stayed. Thank y'all. And we will see you in about 2 weeks for another T&W Chat Space.
Bye. Love you.
Peace,
Love you.
Love you.